Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Helmets of the World. I'm Mike B, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Polish WZ-63 Airborne helmet. This is one that I've been getting a lot of requests for over the years and finally got off my behind to get it made. So this is a very interesting helmet because not a lot of Warsaw Pact countries actually use steel airborne helmets. Most of them were cloth, heavy cloth, kind of like tanker helmets, or plastic, or some other kind of soft thing that were meant to be discarded upon landing. And then you'd throw the steel helmet on that was in your equipment and all that stuff, and you'd carry on. Well, Poland saw it otherwise. So the roots to this can go back to World War II, when Poland had its own independent airborne brigades that were using British equipment. They were using the British paratrooper helmets, the Mark 1 and 2 and all that stuff that kind of were evolved from the dispatch rider's helmet that featured no visor or anything, just kind of a dome-shaped helmet. And so when they decided to kind of make their own helmet for, Warsaw Pact countries, it was just initially for Poland at the beginning, but then it ended up being exported pretty widely to most Warsaw Pact countries. They were kind of sitting there going, okay, well, do we just use the old British, Western-looking helmet that the British still use? Or, do we come up with our own thing? So they got a couple samples of some Belgian designs that were kind of modified British Mark 1 and 2 airborne helmets with different liners and stuff. And they came out with this, with the kind of leather padded rim right here, the steel shell with two vent holes on either side, as you can see, and then a couple rivets to hold the actual liner in. And the first models actually just had a Y chin strap, so like a 3-point chin strap, and they found that that wasn't really working out as well as it should. So they ended up going with this full coverage, basically leather ear and neck flap that went around the head. Now, the Romanians actually kind of got their design for their M75 or M73, depending on who you ask, airborne helmet from this. It was heavily influenced, except their pattern basis was the M39 helmet and not the British Mark 1 helmet, as evident in the shape right here. You can see it's perfectly round. It doesn't have that slope like the Romanian one does. Those two are some of the only two steel helmets I'm actually aware of, this one being the most popular. So if you didn't know this already, and this is why I didn't put this as an East German helmet, is because it's not. It's actually a Polish airborne helmet. Poland prided themselves on the airborne troops that they had, especially after the Second World War, even though they didn't do so hot in Arnhem. They had a rough go there, but they still prided themselves on having pretty elite and specialized airborne forces. So their helmet should, they wanted it to be designed the best. We'll take a look at the liner in a second, but I just kind of want to go over, this was exported, and the most notorious one was to East Germany. There's really no way of telling, because they didn't mark them any different when they got to East Germany, if this was used in East Germany or if this was Polish or used by Bulgarians and stuff. These actually still pop up some places in Eastern Europe, the former Warsaw Pact countries, and they're still being used in a training capacity for airborne troops, which is really interesting. So let's look at the liner really quick. You can see the chin strap. It's got a nice big chin cup on it right there, and it's just a leather strap, and you can put that, I should have just put that there. So it's pretty secure, and it's got a 2-ring friction buckle for securing it, which is pretty cool. And yeah, we take this off. The steel itself is not very strong. It's not really meant to be. It's pretty flexible, as you can see. I can just bend that like that. I don't think it's meant to be super ballistic, but it's just meant to get the paratroopers to where they need to be. Anyway, take a look at the liner here. It's got an 8-tongue European system, as you can see, and this one is dated 1980. Let me see if I can, I gotta turn this around and see if you can see the dome stamp there. So HS stands for, I don't know, Huta Silesia. It's the factory that made most of these, and yeah, you can see that's 1980 right there. So yeah, you've got that nice little liner system, and there was a lot more padding. I got this when I was a kid, and I ended up cutting the padding out from behind the leather here because it was too small and it didn't fit. So yeah, I know I butchered a piece of history, but it still works. You wouldn't have even known if I wouldn't have told you, so you don't gotta be that upset. Anyway, so the covers for these varied greatly. They varied from just no covers like this to a net that had another net on the front of it, to the what's called the frog skin camouflage, which, if you know what that is, it's very, 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 very rare, and it was only worn by paratroopers. But some of the paratroopers had the frog skin covers on these, but most of the time you're just going to see them bare or with a net like this in use. So it's a pretty neat design, and a lot of people attribute this to being an East German airborne helmet, which is not that far from the truth, because they did use it, but technically it was designed and produced in Poland. So The Polish made some pretty good headgear. They make pretty good field gear in general, and their equipment in general during the Cold War especially was pretty superior to a lot of other countries. This is no exception. That's why it was the most popular. And yeah, again, it's still in use today. I've seen pictures of guys very recently, going on training jumps with coalition forces, NATO forces, wearing these things. So that's very interesting as well. Well, that's all I've got basically on this particular helmet. There's really not a lot more to talk about because that's basically what it is. It didn't see a lot of combat use, if any. I don't know if these being exported elsewhere in the world for use. If you have any information on that and you have evidence to back that up, sure, let me know in the comments. That'd be pretty cool. But as far as I know, these were just exported from Poland to Eastern Bloc countries during the Cold War, and then they kind of just found their way into the US market and world market in general. Now, these are getting extremely hard to find. They were very plentiful when I was a kid, and the Eastern Bloc had just fell and they were selling all this stuff off. But now they're really hard to find, so they're a really cool addition to the collection. They're a must-have for any Cold War or specifically Airborne helmet collector because they're one of the most iconic Airborne helmets of the Cold War. So, that being said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude that's been collecting these things and obsessed with them for about 20 years now. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video and want to support my work and enable me to keep making really cool content like this, you can do so in a couple different ways. The first way is to become a Patreon supporter, the link to which is in the description. The other way is to become a channel member on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. Either method of support helps me out greatly and allows me to create content that I otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to make simply just funding out of pocket. Ballistic tests, range videos, and other videos using historic artifacts in an educational manner cost a lot of money to produce, but with crowdfunding, it becomes a lot more possible to make very neat and educational content. $5 a month or more on either platform gets you access to my Discord server, which is very fun and interactive. I've learned a lot on there from other people, and there are quite a few other people on there, which is really cool. If you can't support the channel financially, I totally get that. That's not a problem. You can still support my work by giving this video a thumbs up, subscribing if you haven't already, and the best way to actually support the channel is to share out this video to others if you thought that other people would be able to, get something out of this, find it beneficial, and learn from these videos and find them interesting. Well, now that we've got that done, again, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Helmets of the World.